Hi, Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I get to speak to Gert Mellak from SEOleverage.com. I've done a podcast with Gert before. I've had him on my virtual summit before. He has also done trainings within my community and had people from my community work with him because he's a gun at SEO. Now, in this episode, Gert and I get to speak about the difference between the art of SEO versus the science of SEO and how we should balance those two out equally to ensure we get the best results through our SEO and get the most amount of traffic to our site so we can scale it and grow it. We also talk about why it's so hard for us to keep our website pages ranked high in Google, and why that actually is because Google's a moving target, and there's so many other reasons we talk about in the actual podcast episode. We also talk about the how-to on keeping our website pages ranked. Basically, this podcast episode towards the end is a guide on how we should keep our pages ranked high on Google and what we need to do. So it's such a very valuable episode when it comes to ranking your pages and keeping them ranked and making sure you can scale your website business and ensure that you get more traffic, more revenue, and help people on a better realm. So if you're looking at buying a website business and scaling its traffic, or you already have a website business and you want to scale the traffic through good SEO, make sure you listen in to this episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. Today we get to speak to again Gert Mellak from SEO Leverage. Gert, it's such a pleasure to talk to you every time. We've got so many great friends. We get to catch up. You've done some trainings into our community and have gotten great feedback on those trainings as well with different strategies in SEO. You came on the podcast previously and we get to chat again. And today we're going to talk about how to keep our website pages ranked, because it's such a big topic that a lot of people with websites, especially content sites, they want to keep their ranking. So thank you so much for jumping on, and it's great to have a chat again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jaryd. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and especially catch up on what has been moving in this industry. Keeping sites ranked is definitely an important topic. We got quite some inquiries after our last chat from people who have just purchased websites and wanted to get our take on what they should be doing, what they should be focusing on, how to make sure that the existing revenue still comes in and doesn't get lost while building up the rest of the site and discovering untapped potential on the site. So it's absolutely great, and I'm stoked to be here again.
Yeah, it's so good to make sure that my clients can learn a little bit from you and then come and work with you directly. And it's not about just stripping the site back and doing a whole bunch of SEO and just changing absolutely everything straight away, is it? It's more so about like the Kaizen approach of just small little tweaks as you go to see how you can get a bit more optimization. I guess that's what we're looking to do with our SEO. But when we do that, I want to talk about the art versus science in SEO, because this is a big topic alone. And sometimes people go too heavily on the art, and sometimes they go too heavily on the science and just the data, right? I used to be all about the just the art and the psychology of it and how people are going to react. So I guess I'll touch on what I believe is the art of SEO, or a little bit about the art of SEO versus the science. So when we create something like a piece of content, we need to have a great piece of content, and we need to understand how people are going to react to keep them on the page. And this can be a psychological thing. So we need to think about the art form to make sure people are going to either share it and link to it and stuff like that. But then we need to look at the science part, and the science part is looking at what competitors are doing, looking at the keywords, looking at, the supporting words through the document and all that sort of stuff. Talk to me more about like how you balance the art versus the science, because I know that you're quite good at the science, and then you also put a bit of art into it as well. How do you balance that type of thing in SEO?
It's definitely a very good question, because many clients who come to us are probably coming from most of the time from the art area.
Yeah. Okay.
So they kind of have a very good feeling of what can resonate with their audience. And they might have been, I've just been on another call before with a client who has been creating content for their target audience, which they know so well for over 12 years. So creating content. I did an analysis, a quick one on their site, and they had like 3,000 pages of content, extremely targeted and tailor-made for their target audience. So every piece of content, if they read it, it's going to resonate, it's going to be great for conversions. But what happened at the end of the day is that Google had like 3,000 pieces of content with a very similar topic, very similar content structure, very similar themes being talked about. So Google is having a hard time getting those pages ranked. So at the end of the day, when you really compare what pages are on the site with what pages are really driving traffic, we haven't done this in this analysis yet, but usually if you have like 3,000 pages, it's probably like 120 pages really driving traffic.
Yeah.
And the rest, you could technically delete it from the page and it wouldn't impact traffic right away. It might in the later future, but it doesn't anyway. So most people come from an art perspective, where they say, look, I know my target audience, I know what's converting, I know what's working. I just, quote unquote, want to get it ranked better and get more traffic, harvest the fruits from my labor. And that's where the technical part comes in.
I love that you said that, because it's just supporting evidence on the quality versus quantity. So like for everybody listening, they can see, 3,000 like pieces of content. Like if I want to grow my site, I just need more content and I can do that. But you've gone away and seen that you can have 3,000 pieces of content and you only can go with 120 of those. And if you go with 120 of those and they're done well, and you use the science to make sure they get ranked, then you can is it true that you can end up getting more traffic from just those 120 articles in the 3,000? Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely.
I love that.
Been doing an SEO audit where we actually took away like 1,000 URLs very quickly, and some URLs double traffic. Because it's just like Google, I usually try to make people think that Google wants to save money. Okay.
Yeah.
So even if they have all the money you can imagine, at the end of the day, they need to pay for processing websites. Okay. Yeah. So they're not interested in processing useless information that's not going to give them results to show to clients, to show to users, to search users. Okay. So how can you help Google save money? You can make sure that every single page on your website is really valuable, is really bringing a potential search result to Google that's going to make your Google user happy.
Yeah. Okay.
And once you think about this, it's just not possible that it's going to be 3,000 pages in a given moment. Even if you've got a news site which produces tons and tons of content, the news article about a puppy being run over by a car for 6 days ago is not being worthwhile anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to either repurpose this content, put it together with all the car accidents or accidents on the street that have happened in the past in a certain year, and it's valuable again, or you just get rid of it, prune it. If it's not worthwhile anymore, get rid of it and have Google really focus on the most important pieces of content on your page and focus your effort in there.
I just love that. It just reiterates so much of what I say, not just here on the podcast and other episodes, but what I'm teaching my clients in the actual community. Because sometimes that, for example, somebody just bought a website where last year in 2019, it's a content site, and the deal didn't end up going through, but they were working out what their growth strategy would be. And in 2019, that website they were going to buy had produced 200 pieces of content, 200 articles, which is roughly like 4 per week. So, which is just crazy to me, because if they just did 4 per month or even 2 per month and they focused on them a lot better, then they could get a better result. They could end up getting more traffic and doing less work. So in this case, more can be less can be more, right?
Right. Absolutely. I was just reminded of a person calling me. I think they came through your podcast as well. They kind of got to know us through the podcast, and they had just purchased a website which was mainly a business directory, which are doing very well usually in terms of revenue. They've got like certain companies paying them a monthly fee to get listed higher or whatever is the model. But they essentially, the site was in the initial stages. They didn't have tons of listings paying them. They just had a few, and they had like as those were premium listings, they had them across the entire page. Okay, so whenever you have a business directory, you've got like city pages and like vertical pages. They were like all over the place. So the page had like 20,000 URLs.
Wow.
But actually 19,858 were the same.
Wow.
Okay, it was actually the same listings. So what I would assume is for people aiming at purchasing or selling websites, would be interesting is to see how much do you really have in terms of value per page. Okay, if you check out 100 pages, how much different approaches to value or how much value are you giving across those pages? Okay, not see the whole website whole website entirely, but also see what individual pages are really giving value and what individual pages should be removed because they provide a bad user experience. If I have a premium listing from New York and I'm entering the web directory in Melbourne, it's not going to be a valuable listing for me. And Google knows this. Google is smart enough to figure this out. So Google is smart enough to know that 98% of this website is crap.
Yeah. Just non-value pieces of content prevents people from staying on the page longer. And Google just says, well, most of the content's not good. So it just decreases the trust and the value of the overall site. So we're better off it's kind of like dead weight, right? We just need to cull that dead weight and get rid of it. That's just holding us back. So once we've sort of culled all that and we've pruned away those pieces that aren't good, and we've got pieces of content that are valuable and they're getting ranked and they're getting traffic in. But why is it that it's so hard to keep our pages ranked higher, like to keep our rankings? Like some people don't actually know why it's really, really hard, as there is more than just one reason why it's hard to keep our site ranked, right? We could have competitors, we could have different keywords, we could have different reasons. We could have new pieces of content coming out. What are some of the reasons why it's hard to keep our site ranked? And then we'll dig into how we should keep it ranked.
That's a great question, especially because many people approach us and say, yeah, look, we own number 3 on Google's page 1. Okay, we have been owning position 3, so that's not going to go away. So let's work on something else. Okay, so that's the approach of many people. And that's where I tend to say, look, you don't own anything, right? And I've seen so many sites lose so much traffic within days where they weren't fast enough to pick up their site and see what they need to improve to get back up.
Yeah.
I've seen a site lose 70% of their traffic within a week after an algorithm update, and you don't even need an algorithm update. What I usually say is Google is a moving target, right? And this is why we mostly focus on site audits, but also do ongoing consulting, because where we find the most value is when we can get together with a client every couple of weeks and say, look, dear client, this is where you are. This is where your competitors are. This is what Google wants to show. This is where Google wants to show what you have on your website. This is where Google wants to show what competitors have of their website on their website. How can we adapt your website to what Google wants to show today, which is not going to be the same that Google wants to show tomorrow?
Yeah.
And you really need to stay on top of your game. So once you purchase a website, you can't count on the revenue continuing to come in. You can count on having a new job to do, which can be very lucrative, but it's going to be something that's going to occupy your mind every single day afterwards. Okay, so definitely you need to be very aware that you're not owning anything. Even if the site has been on the top 3 for 5 years, it's probably a little bit more stable than a website that just got to page 1. I agree with that, but still a lot of things can happen, and you can have a technical issue or get hacked and spamware gets added to your site or whatever, and you lose your position. So you want to make sure you're not depending only on one single search result. But given that Google is a moving target, you need to adjust. So the best example I always bring up is first I try to clarify search intent with clients. So search intent meaning a user performing a search on Google has a certain expectation about the result.
Yeah, what's their intention? They're trying
their
to, like,
intention,
what's the thing they want?
What's their intention? Why did they open Google? Okay, and if the search is SEO agencies in Australia, they are not expecting to find a result of a single SEO agency. They're expecting, in their mind, they're expecting a list of agencies, all based in Australia, probably a comparison maybe of price point, of references, of testimonials, reviews, things like that. Okay, it's just impossible for me these days to rank with my SEO agency for a term that says best SEO agencies in Australia. It's almost impossible unless I would bring up a page that is a comparison. I compare my agency with a lot of other agencies, for example, and then we would kind of respond to the search intent. But search intent isn't anything static. So if you think of Notre Dame, for example, which is like a perfect example for search intent changing, when there was the fires, they did a study where they said, okay, look, before the fires, you put in Notre Dame and you got tourism information, pictures, etc. During the period of the fires and a few weeks afterwards, you got pictures of the fires.
Yeah.
And what has been destroyed and how much damage and how much financial help came from abroad, etc. Today I did a search on Notre Dame, and it's again tourist information. It's information of, can this be visited? What would be a way to visit it? How can this be approached? Can I go there? What can I see? What have been the damages? What has been reconstructed already, etc. So the search intent changes over time heavily.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, because what Google is doing is they're changing with the times. And it's the same with what we need to do in our businesses and our life, and everything that we do is with our website business, we need to change with the times. And I guess that's the same with our content, right? Which is why it's hard for us to stay ranked. Another reason would be that information, like you said earlier about the puppy crossing the road and getting hit by a car, is no longer relevant and it's no longer valuable. So that's why we need to refine our existing content, because then competition can come in with more relevant content that Google sees that's a better target at the moment in this time in history, and will point more traffic towards that because it's more valuable. So that's another, probably a big reason why, not just a moving target, but there's a competition out there that are trying to put their content in front of the bullseye. Would you say?
Absolutely. Competitors are going to do whatever it takes to figure out what's going to get ranked the highest at Google. And Google is very quick to adjust. So just have a look at some political stuff going on, some worldwide topics which are at the forefront. Google is very quick to adjust to trending topics of social media, for example. So they know that if everybody talks about Notre Dame, for example, on social media, it's probably more important right now to talk about what's going on in a given moment. And then it's important to say that the search intent also implies that Google users expect a different way of content being presented on the page. So what we figured out, for example, happened with one of the last core updates in 2019, was that Google didn't want to see the big sliders anymore, which was one of the reasons why one of the people we helped with got hit, because they still had this huge slider. You had to scroll down to start reading the information, and we saw that Google by then preferred people to be upfront with the answer, or at least confirm that they are giving the answer. This is a very good tip, I think, for your listeners as well. If you can confirm right at the beginning without scrolling that you're going to give the answer to the most likely search intent on this page, you have a better chance in ranking. So what you don't want is that people need to scroll down and then find out if this is really the right page for them, or if they need to go back to Google and then click on another page. People are not going to do this anymore.
And by doing so, you also put yourself in the bucket of the chance of getting a featured snippet, right? Because you're outlining that value in the top paragraph. And what Google does is they reward those people who have a quick, simple, and easy answer with a featured snippet. And yeah, your page can have the rest of the traffic, whether it's a 1,000 words or whatever it is, but you increase your chances of getting a snippet by doing so?
I mean, you first need to be eligible for page 1 to get a featured snippet.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first step is really to get to page 1. If you then structure your content in the right way, you can get this featured snippet, but you then need to track if it's really worthwhile to have it.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess we're talking about how to stay ranked now. So that is, removing that slider, providing value at the front. What are some of the other ways to stay ranked in Google with our content, stay up to date with the times? Are we doing, better keyword research for our content and changing content, refining it, spying on competitors and seeing what their layout of their content is, the user design of our pages? What are some of the things that we need to be focusing on? Because I know a lot of people are listening and they may have just bought a site, like a client of mine just bought a site. He's got 2 great rankings, top pages, and one got hit and he fixed it up and got back ranking in that top again. And there's other people in the same boat. How do we keep those rankings? Like what do we need to do to have good maintenance to keep those?
I think it's a great question, and you need to make sure you have an idea of what's important in your space. Okay, so you might be in a space where it's very important to have very fresh content. Okay, so an extreme example would be a news magazine. You're not going to stay on page 1 if you don't update your news site because you don't have any news anymore. Okay, but this can also be a technology related site. If you not bring up the latest information about the latest iPhone, or probably iPhone probably coming out and the technical features it might have, you're just outdated. Yeah. So make sure that if you are in a space where content freshness is important and is expected, you need to work on this on a constant basis. You need to make sure people always find fresh content. Google always finds fresh content and updated content. This doesn't mean you need to produce a new article every single week, but it can also mean you just check out your existing iPhone articles, for example, and make sure they contain the latest relevant information. Update them, make sure the published date is updated as well in Google, so Google can see something has really changed. Don't update just the date, because it is like a hack you can find on the internet. Make sure you really update this article, at least add an additional paragraph or something like that. And then make sure to check if it really got updated with the right date. And this would be, for example, one of the possible strategies for a topic area where freshness is really important. You might be in another area where freshness isn't really an issue, right? If you're a B2B service provider, it might not be necessarily important to have the latest update on your website. There might be other things, which could be links, for example. Okay, so if you don't get any links to your site over time and your competitors do, definitely you're not going to have it easy stay with your site ranking at the top.
Yeah, that's cool. So refining content and making sure you're getting new relevant links. So would you say an example would be if I have an affiliate or a content site that's about surfing and surfboards, if I had an article that is ranked highly for the 10 best surfboards ever, then what happens is I leave that for maybe a year or two and just think, okay, I've done that piece of content. I just need to create new ones and add that on top into my, bank of content. Instead, it's probably better for me to just go, all right, 2 years ago I wrote this article, but they're not the 10 best surfboards anymore. It'd be better for me to strip off 5 that aren't relevant and then put the new 5 ones that are, and then probably do some outreach to get other people to link back to that because it's more relevant now. So I've got fresh content and I've got new links. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's a perfect example. I really love it. I'm going to use this in other places as well.
Awesome.
Definitely you need to update the content, but you still want to provide the maximum value, and the maximum value on a 10 best something page is definitely updating and maintaining the quality of your selection.
Yeah.
Right. And then over time, obviously, you need to communicate to Google that this is still the page other websites refer to. So this is where the link building comes in, that you want to have a process, an ongoing process where good and relevant links are being built to this page. You are responsible for the updates. You make sure links are coming in, positive ranking signals, votes of confidence, as we call them, are coming in on a constant basis. And then in this specific example, I would also do some other checks, which could be a performance check, see if the site is still up there in terms of speed and performance. Does it load as fast as competitors, or better, faster than the competitors? Yeah. Is it does it still have the same length Google expects pages to have? So once a page stops ranking or drops in rankings, sometimes people expect a different level of depth or length of the article as well. So we might have expected a few years back on the surfboard article, a very long article explaining all the features of a surfboard. And right now our attention span is getting smaller and smaller. We just want to have the 10 images with their name and click on it on an image. So also from a usability perspective, you want to make sure that your content is still, it comes back to relevance. Is still relevant for what users expect at a certain moment. And you're not going, if you don't match what users expect, you're not going to drop from one day to the other, from position 2 to position 28.
Yeah,
you're going to gradually get less expression, less impressions, fewer clicks, fewer impressions.
Yeah,
and this is where we try with the ongoing consulting to kind of bring this to business owners' attention and say, look, you've got this great result. You purchased the website. The website, you knew it when you purchased it, depended on those 5 URLs being ranked on Google. Yeah. Otherwise, the revenue would get lost. And we can see there is a slight downwards trend, and Google gives them less exposure in the search results. And we need to find out why.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you added in the the page speed, and then also usability, because like you said, the attention span is so short now. And I know personally that when I go to read something on the internet, if I see a big wall of text, like a white background with a big wall of text, I'm pretty close to running away.
Absolutely. And
when I see a 10 best of things, say that's the 10 best surfboards, and I see that it could be the background color for one surfboard could be light gray with some text, and then the next one could be white with some text, and then different images in between, or different rating and review box charts that they have for different affiliate sites that they can use. That's what with the usability we're talking about. So if we're going to refresh that content, we may as well instill those practices to make the content relevant for the time that, like you said, but then also the page speed as well, because sometimes when we put a video or images and stuff in, we may just slap together this piece of content, make it new, but it could load really slow if we don't optimize the images. So we need to be looking at that as well, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. A piece of advice I usually give clients is I try to have them check how many people come from a mobile phone to the website, which is usually more than half. Some areas of businesses or even 60-70%. So I ask clients to navigate their website every week at least once from their mobile phone without the Wi-Fi switched on, and then check the user experience. And this is sometimes it really strikes business owners on how their website works on a mobile phone. They usually don't like to navigate their website on a mobile phone. They prefer to use the desktop. Why do they prefer the desktop? Because the site is not up to date, and ranking drops are actually almost scheduled to come in the next weeks and months, because the site is not where it needs to be. So navigating your website from a mobile phone should be a pleasure. Otherwise, you have a lot of work to do in order to not lose rankings.
Yeah, that's huge, because I think just like me and maybe you, a lot of people look at our sites from our desktop and only look at our site from our desktop. And we can forget that like like you said, more than half percent of people that are viewing this are going to be mobile viewers. Probably around 70 to 80, 90% of people that are viewing this are going to be mobile viewers. And in my head, I may just never have thought like, wow, like my site looks rubbish and Google's not going to reward people who are searching on their mobile phone to go to my site. So I need to change that. That's excellent. Thank you so much. We've covered so much in this episode. For those of you guys who didn't take notes, go back and listen to this again, because if you want to keep your site ranked and your pages ranked, this is basically a how-to guide on how to do that. Also check out the show notes as well. Thanks again so much for jumping on. Where can we find out more about you? Best way would be SEOleverage.com. You can find this on Google, obviously, but also we're on Facebook or my personal Instagram profile, Gert Mellak. A little bit hard to spell, but you're going to find it. Gert, first name? Mellak. Yeah, Lak. Awesome. Thanks so much, Gert. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.